You are listening to And If Love Remains, a unique show spotlighting people, ideas, science, culture, and art. Your host, Mike Levitt.
Hello, you are listening to And If Love Remains, and I am your host, Mike Levitt. And I have on a good friend of the program, somebody we had on relatively recently, but always happy to have him on, Benjamin Hyde. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Mike, thank you for having me back again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad to have you on today. Today we're it's going to be a little bit more, melancholy, or a little bit more, thoughtful as we both talk about the passing of Wal Thornhill and what he means. He recently passed away, and I know you were friendly with him, so my sympathies and sorry to hear about that. But I really want to talk about him, his contribution. He's a great engineer, a great scientist in the true sense of the word. And so it's great to have you on to talk about his legacy.
Thank you. I think this is appropriate. When I was watching his funeral services, the funeral director who was kind of emceeing the whole thing, just did a absolutely spectacular job. I'm not even sure if he said funeral once. He kept using the words celebration and remembrance and whatnot in talking about the actual event. And I thought, wow, that is just brilliant.
Yeah, it is. So it is important to celebrate somebody like Wal, because his contributions are great. And I think in the future will be seen even greater, in my opinion.
Those almost verbatim words were said at the funeral.
Oh, wow.
By different people.
Yeah. So, well, let's talk about him, and I definitely want to start with who he was, because you did know him personally. Like, tell me a little bit about his personality from your aspect. How was he casually? Like, who was Wal Thornhill?
Sure. Well, I think what would be fun is if I tell you how I actually met him.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because that tells a lot about the type of person that he was. So this was about 4 years ago. I was doing a lot of studying, a lot of research just on physics, because that's what I love. And part of that was, watching presentations on YouTube of conferences and primary sources of scientists who had something to say about physics. Well, YouTube flipped over one of the Electric Universe videos to me, and I saw it and I watched it. I thought, okay, that was interesting. And it kind of stuck with me. And so I'm watching a bunch of other physics videos, and it stuck with me to the point to where I'm like, I need to go back and find out what that was. What was that Electric Universe thing? So I did an actual search for it, and that's when a lot of Wal's videos came up, and Don Scott and David Talbot. And my eyes just went boing, and I was brought into the fold, as it was.
Right.
So after watching a few videos, I learned that, Wal had a website, and I'm like, this is fantastic. So I went to his website, and at the bottom of the website was his email address. And I'm like, wow, I could actually reach out and talk with him. I wonder if he probably won't respond, but that's pretty cool that I can send him an email. So I did. It was just a very, very simple email, because I figured that he was emailing the crap out of everybody, and everybody wanted a piece of his ear and listen to him. So I just simply put, thank you much for your work. I love it. Thanks again. And that was it. And I sent it off. I got a reply within like 24 hours. And it wasn't just thank you. It was like 4 paragraphs.
No way.
He had taken the time to just start talking. And I'm like, whoa. So I took that as kind of an invitation that it was okay, that he was accessible, that I could approach him. And so I did. And so I wrote back to him, and we started an email correspondence. And he was very, very tight with responding. It wasn't days going by, it was hours, maybe a day.
Wow.
Because, of course, he's in Canberra, I'm in the United States, and so there was a huge time difference. So I immediately got on my cell phone and pulled up my world clock and put Canberra on my phone so I could always tell what time it was for him, so I'd know that when to expect and when to not expect to hear from him. Well, very, very soon in our correspondence, he said, "Hey, I've got an experiment I'd like you to run. Would you be interested in it?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "You need to get a couple of Hullback arrays. A Hullback is just a bunch of magnets placed side by side in really weird configurations, which makes the magnetic field weaker or stronger on one side. They're a lot of fun to play with." But
Okay.
he had me do that, and he had me film it, and he just asked me if he would do that experiment, and I did. And I was like, "Wow, I'm actually working with my hero, my idol, this pillar of the community." Well, I got up enough gumption to say, "Can we Skype?" And he's like, "Absolutely." So I started Skyping with him.
No way.
I did. And it got to the point to where I'd Skype with him like every month. We'd just call and talk. He was one of those people that he and I apparently share the same mindset. You know how your friends have the same personality type as you?
Right.
You can get along. It's easy to talk with them. Wall was that way with me. He was very easy to talk to. And some of our Skype calls lasted over an hour. I'd look at the clock. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we've been talking for an hour." I was like, "Oh my gosh." And we'd just talk about all sorts of fun, usually Electric Universe stuff.
Yeah.
But he was that kind of guy for me. He and I clicked very well. And so to lose him now is just,
Yeah.
I mean, I always know it's coming. You always know it's a possibility, but still, you're like,
Well,
dang it.
was he? I mean, I think I did the math. I mean, he was in his 70s, which is still that's pretty young to go.
He's
And that's
81.
was he 81? Okay, so
Yeah,
I did the math totally wrong.
that's all right.
but that's why I'm a musician. I only have to count to 4 and spell to G. Okay.
You're forgiven, Mike. You're forgiven.
Thank you. But he no, but it is one of the things I really appreciate about him, and I appreciate about you too, is I've told you this before. I kind of think of you as kind of a tinkerer, and he was in that same mold of like,
Oh, he
I
was.
I think he felt, or I think he saw himself as an engineer first, and my father's an electrical engineer, and
Oh,
he's the
yeah.
one who turned me on to Wall and the Thunderbolts project and the Electric Universe idea,
Really?
and oh yeah, and he was really impressed with the science of it, and just impressed, and that of that same mold of like, well, let's just try it and find out if it works or not, and the experiment will tell us, like there's no reason not to just do it, and you don't. And the beautiful thing about experimenting with Electric Universe ideas is that you don't need multi-billion-dollar labs to do it, because
No, you don't.
it's fractal. It works all the way up and all the way down. If it works down here, it's going to work on the macro level as well.
Exactly right. As it should. It always bugged me with quantum physics when I was studying it that quantum physics literally said that there are certain rules that govern the subatomic and other rules that govern the macroscopic, the world that you and I can see and touch and feel.
Right.
And I thought, that can't be right. Why would the universe ever make two sets of rules? That just doesn't make any sense.
And scientists knew that it was wrong. They just couldn't figure out why.
Right.
And it's because they're and that's like a model, like that's like a test. If it's not working, that it's not that the universe is wrong. It's probably that your model is wrong. And I've said this before to you, if 90% of the universe or 97% we can't touch, feel, we can't even like figure out what it is, there's probably a problem with the model, not with the universe itself.
Right. Right. The more I've studied this, I realize that the facts are there. Like, scientists are in possession of the facts. It's the interpretation which
Right.
lead to the models which have gone astray. But
Right.
that doesn't just apply to science, that applies to humanity. I
Oh,
mean, how
absolutely.
many times have people misinterpreted a thing and then built stories about them, greater and smaller?
Well, I think you're talking about my marriage. No, seriously though, like things like we filter things through our own eyes and our own brains and our own models that we create.
Right.
And unless you have, wonderful communication and the ability to have an open mind,
There it is.
and the ability to be, I think the ability is the true mark of a great person, but a scientist specifically, is humility. The idea to actually think, I could be wrong about this.
Which is amazing when you realize that science, when it's spoken of by pundits, specifically point out that science changes its mind all the time.
Right.
No, science should do that. That doesn't mean that's what it actually does.
Well, what it does is it doesn't change its mind. It just adds more complexity onto their model and says, "Oh, see, we changed the science to make it work." And it's like, no, you can't turn a Frankenstein like that. Like that's not
Right,
how this works.
right. Yeah,
I wanted one of the things I really appreciated about Wall was his, as I is, I just knew him through his lectures that I listened to. Most of them went over my head, but it was fascinating nonetheless. Um, but it was, he was so forthright and bold and calling out, the mainstream ideas. He would say, Einstein is wrong. Science,
right.
the things that they, I mean, he's going right after, the Big Bang, the things that, I that in the mid 90s I learned were, the truths about science and the cosmic world. He's going right after and saying, what are you talking about, this relativity thing? What are you talking about, this Big Bang thing? Like we're thinking about this completely wrong.
Yep. That was the first thing that attracted me to him when I first listened to the lectures, was his unabashed directness and contrariness to the standard model. Because I had come to my own understanding that standard model couldn't be right. It was just nonsense. But I'd never heard, up until I heard Wall, I'd never heard anybody say that. And all of a sudden he's out there presenting and saying, look, what we think we know is wrong. And I'm like, wow, yay! Finally,
Yeah.
someone's saying it.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, I don't know if you got into this with him, but what do you think? How did he um, see the world, and what made him start to think in this electric universe direction? Do you have a sense of like what his thought process was, and how did he start to move that way?
So we never talked about this directly, but from just talking with him over the last few years and watching what his family said about him, about what type of person he is, I think I know exactly why he does this. And it goes back to something you said a few minutes ago, that he has an engineering mindset, meaning he was always curious about how things worked.
Yeah.
And see, that's exactly what I am, the same way. I've built my whole business that I have on figuring out how things work. I have two lines of work right now where I do that. I fix blinds, and there's no school for that. I just literally have to fix it out, or figure out how to fix out. And I also fix electric scooters. And again, that's just me digging in with a screwdriver and poking around until I find something that says, hey, I'm wrong. I
Right. Right.
know he had that mindset. So it's not surprising at all that he ended up at the electric universe, because he wouldn't be the kind to just listen to explanations and say, okay, yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely not him. He wants to know how they work. I mean, his family talked about how he built props. He was a movie maker. I didn't know this. I didn't know he was a movie maker. He was an amateur movie maker. He built props. He built a bar inside his own house, or some kind of prop. I don't know what it was. It was some Australian English word I didn't understand, but he built something inside his house that everybody talked about and thought was pretty cool.
Wow.
It sounded like they said a bar,
Right. Right.
like a mini bar, but they didn't
Right.
say mini bar. It was something else, but
Okay. That's wild. and he was a little bit of a unicorn in the sense that he was also a scholar. Like he was able to write well
Oh
enough
yeah,
to get published. He was, very methodical and erudite, and being able to, um, you know, logically and persuasively, um, you know, talk about the problems in the standard model, and how the ideas of the electric universe solve those problems.
right. So you said something that I'm interesting. I want to go back to. When
Yeah.
I met Wall, I had already come to the conclusion that the standard model was completely messed up. There had to be something else. But you've come at it from a musician standpoint. What did the electric universe look like to you going into it?
Wow. Well, for me, um, and this is, I think this is smart intuition on my father's part. Is I've always been interested in science. I've just never been really great at it. To me it's fascinating to kind of learn how things work, and the theories, and how things are. I like how things are put together. I'm an artist in that way. I like to see how things are put together. And
Right.
um, he he turned me on actually to you mentioned his name earlier.
Oh, Don Scott or David Talbot.
David Talbot. So he turned me on to this. It was on the Thunderbolts web YouTube channel, and it was the um uh oh man
Symbols of an Alien Sky, or
Symbols of an Alien Sky.
yeah,
So that was the first thing that I watched, and it blew me away because it seemed so right, and yet I could not figure out how it fit together. Like I was, it was so, um, it was David was so persuasive to me, and these ancient archetypes and how they were put together and why we see them all over the world.
yeah,
Um, and then just and I think that for an artist and for somebody like me that isn't maybe steeped in science, I think that was a great gateway drug into it. um and it just it I just thought, because I never bought the idea that our ancients were stupid, and I never bought the idea
yeah,
that people did things, like if an archaeologist sees something, like it's immediately going to go to, oh, that was some religious thing, and that was their cult and this, and I'm like, I don't buy that. Like I understand what you're saying, but I think they're like literally trying to tell us something. And we have art all over the place right now that we do that is, it's meant to, like, to communicate an idea that you can't, that can only be done over time through symbols.
right.
And so that was my first introduction, and then I saw Wall, and like I think the first thing I watched of Wall was an EU conference he had here in Phoenix, and it was again, it was on YouTube, and it was something to the effect of, like, it was basically just saying Einstein is dead. Like he was just
Yeah,
he just took the ideas of relativity, and the thing that I loved about it is he used scientists' own words, because this is the dirty secret that insiders won't let us plebs know, is that they have the same doubts. You talk to people in biology, and they say there are problems with Darwinism, and the general ideas of evolution. Now they're not saying like there's a god or anything like that, but what they're saying is, like, we understand internally that there's problems with these theories, but we're not going to let the public know this. And it was the same thing with the standard models, the same thing with
right.
the electric universe. It was like we knew there was problems with the standard model, but we're not going to, like, let the world know this, because then maybe we won't get the funding we want. Like, I don't know the reason, but there's something going on there that 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 Wall was using their own words to absolutely destroy, and say there are serious problems with Einstein's theories, and there's serious problems with what we think redshift is, and and the solutions that Wall came up with or expressed using the electric universe model, it just made sense to me. It says, it said, I don't get what those scientists are talking about with quarks and dark matter and stuff. I get what he's saying. Like I'm picking up what he's throwing at me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? That's
I
how I
do.
came at it from.
I do. Okay. Well, that's really interesting because I've always wondered what the electric universe looks like to a non, and I don't want to call you a non-scientist. Your interest in complex thinking is just taking a different path than mine because
Right.
musicians, and you're a musician, I know we've talked about this, is their brains, and this has been studied psychologically, are just kind of a step ahead of people who are non-musicians. It's been documented that you just have the ability to think of things and reason in a way that non-musicians can't. So it's
Well,
not
excuse me while I
surprising that
record
you're
this for
interested.
my wife again. So hold on. No, I do think we do see patterns and we do see things that maybe we can't communicate other than musically, but
But you
it's
still see them.
definitely, yeah, you can still see them, and you intuitively know that something when something is right and something is wrong,
And see,
and
that's an interesting point. I always thought that intuition and hardcore science were really separated and should be separated
right,
until I started looking at the history of scientific discovery and finding out that so many scientific discoveries were based on intuition
yeah,
or based
yeah,
on a dream or based on a vision. You're like, wait, what? So
so go ahead, yeah, I want to bring
to,
this.
to divorce to divorce science from intuition is just abject foolishness. It is just ignorance of how the world actually works. Is there something out there that creates the intuition? Yes. Do we know what it is? No. Have we put labels on it? Yes. Oh, yes, we have. People have
Yeah,
put all sorts of labels on it, but it's still out there and it's very real. And in little tiny increments, it has been measured in different labs under different names. But oh, that's so fascinating.
yeah, and you cannot. Um, in fact, I'll go this far. I don't think any great um, change in any great field, any cosmic big change, it can't happen within the field. It has to happen from outside. Somebody has to see something that everybody else is missing, and I think Wall did that. Like he was able to say, "Wait, the emperor is naked," and and I think I can prove it, and I'm going to try to. That I think that's what he did.
I completely agree. It was interesting how you used those words just now because those words almost exactly are right behind me in my lab up on the wall. Let me read to you what's on my wall. This is from
Okay.
Albert St. Georgi. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He's the guy who invented vitamin C. In the
Oh,
history,
okay.
the guy invented. He's not a slouch. He's a Nobel laureate. He said, "Science here. Oops, I need my glasses. Hold on a second. Scientific discovery consists of seeing what everybody has seen and thinking what nobody else has thought."
Yeah, that's
Isn't that pretty?
that's gorgeous. Yeah, he said it better than I did.
Oh no, you said it was almost verbatim. That's why I pulled it off. I was like, oh,
Oh,
I recognize that quote.
that's wonderful, and it's true. It's you can't when you're so and you see this in all of human endeavors. Like it is so easy. I mean, it's almost a cliche that it's the and I'm the government will give contracts to four big time firms to build an aeroplane, and then there's this little bicycle company that all of a sudden discovers flight and how we can have manned flight.
Yeah,
It's the stereotype, but there's a reason why those cliches are true. Um, the it's the guys that are willing to step out and go, wait a sec, you know, and in Walt's case, in the Electric Universe case, it's literally like you can't keep adding band-aids to the standard model and think that the model is working.
right, exactly. Yep, you just have to, and it's not. But the other thing too, it's not that you have to scrap everything. The electric universe
Right.
clearly doesn't poo-poo everything. We still deal with charge and
Yeah.
atomic models. I mean, we didn't throw out everything. We don't even deny gravity. And some people say, "Oh, you like to just say gravity isn't real." No, that's never been us. We just point out that the electric charge is 39 orders of magnitude greater than gravity.
Right.
So to
Right.
think that gravity is the major force in the universe is just abject foolish.
Okay, maybe help me with this because I did watch Wall's lecture on um electric gravity or something of that nature, and that was one of the ones I was just kind of like, okay, I'm with you, but I'm not quite with you. So can you
Okay,
explain to me what his theory on electric gravity or how gravity and electricity work together, or what was
I
his
will
theory
do
on
my
that?
best. Now,
Okay.
this is my understanding of his idea, and we're not
Right.
saying that his idea is right, but that's where, we got to start somewhere. So
Yeah.
you have, imagine an atom, and an atom has a nucleus that is positively charged. Around the nucleus, and this is just the standard model, around the nucleus are orbiting electrons, which have a negative charge. Okay. So if you look at an atom with the electrons going around it and you measure the charge on that, at one point in the cycle, one side, like the top of what you're looking at of the atom, will be more negative than the bottom because the
Okay.
electrons might all be orbiting on the north side of the atom. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you put a probe down there, you'd measure that there'd be a positive charge on the bottom side of the atom where the protons are, and a negative charge at the top
Okay.
or the
Yeah.
north of it. All right. So he's taking that model and going down one step. He's saying that electrons and protons have a positive and negative charge in them. Now, electrons, we all know, are negatively charged, but he's saying, no, there's probably a positive charge in there, but because of the structure of the electron, the electric or the negative charge is most prevalent. That's what we can measure. But if there is a positive and negative charge in an electron, then the positive charge of the electron will be attracted to the negative charge of another electron. They will
Oh
then
wow.
stand side by side, and then that electron will have a positive field on it, and another electron will be attracted to that. And it is the combination of all those tiny little infinitesimal charges, attractions between electrons and protons, and electrons and other electrons that make up gravity.
Oh wow. Okay. That is a fascinating idea.
It's
Wow.
it is. It's not without precedent, because if you look up the definition of the London force, that's the exact same idea except scaled up two levels. Instead of being subatomic particles, instead of being atomic particles, it deals with that attraction between molecules. The
Hmm.
molecules have a side of them that is more negative and more positive. And so molecules will attract each other. And we already know that that's the case. But
That
it's just the London force scaled down two levels.
see, okay, and this is what I'm talking about. Like let's take any theory and test it and test it to the extreme. Like for Wall to go say, I'm gonna take this idea and see how far it goes all the way to the extreme of gravity. And like you said, like he's not saying that this is it, but it's like this is actually under the electric universe umbrella that could actually be the deal. And can we as humans think of how that works within that model in a practical and in a way that doesn't include dark energy?
Right. Well, see, and this goes back to something you said earlier, is the beauty of one of the beauties of the electric universe is that it's fractal. And what you mean by that is that it's scalable. Is that
Yeah.
the processes that happen at the microscopic level also happen at the macroscopic level. So you don't need billions of dollars of equipment. I mean, if you have it, great, but you don't need it. You can just look at macroscopic events. And when I say macroscopic, I mean stuff that we can touch, taste, hear, feel, and see.
Yeah.
The table, we can, because the processes that cause a table to be solid and air to be not solid are the same processes that happen at the subatomic level.
Right. Yep.
So,
I
I love that. That's beautiful.
It is, by the way, it is beautiful. And you asked me what like turned me on to the electric universe, and it was that connection idea, like how you could go all the way to the cosmic level, and how planets are connected to their stars, which are connected to their galaxies, which you can see, and it's one of those things that once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's we talked about
Right.
one of the legacies of Wall, some of the people that are going to be carrying on his work, Garth, the See the Pattern YouTube channel, and he shows, and so does the Thunderbolts project, you can see these patterns of electric plasma through the universe that is connecting these galaxies and stars, and it is, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee the pattern. You're like, wait a
Right.
sec, that is not gravity and happenstance that is making that happen.
No, it's not. In fact, you said something just a moment ago that Wall has harped on harped on, maybe a little strong, but he has brought up in a bunch of his presentations, and that is that the electric universe is a connected cosmology.
Yeah.
Meaning that the planets are in you can look at them as a family relation, or at least a connected relationship with their star. And that solar system is connected to the local environment of stars, which is then connected to the galaxy. When you read modern cosmology, you keep hearing words that talk about an isolated star, a star doing something on its own, and galaxies out in the void, all by themselves. And that's exactly what the electric universe shows is not the case.
Right.
Everything is connected with electric currents in plasma, these gargantuan Birkeland currents, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And I can see how that would appeal to an artist as well.
Oh, absolutely. It is so beautiful. And it really, to me, it excites the universe. The universe is no longer dead space,
Absolutely.
but is a living organism that is, and I don't know who did the presentation. You probably do. So, but there's somebody on Thunderbolts that, huh?
Are you going with Rupert Sheldrake's idea?
Possibly. The idea, like, he talked about how, when a star goes into, the standard model, what is a, I can't even think of the term.
Supernova?
Supernova. Yeah. When a star does a supernova, it's this exploding star, where in this model, you can make a strong case that no, that's actually another part of the organism that's doing more work, that is doing something different, that is doing something that as a normal star couldn't do, and is adding something to the overall complexity of the universe.
Sure. Well,
and that was just a beautiful, like, whoa.
Oh, it is. Well, what's even more? There's another example of that. It was Halton Arp. Are you familiar with him?
I don't know the name, but
okay, it's fine. It doesn't matter. He was an astronomer who worked with Edwin Hubble. And Halton Arp identified, I have one of his books, he identified that the Big Bang couldn't have happened just because of the actual data. But one of the things that he showed, and it goes back to this connectivity idea, is that quasars are actually connected to their parent galaxy. And when I say parent, it literally is a parent. Quasars are baby galaxies. And apparently they're born in twins. They're born as twins. And any astronomer will be able to tell you this. They're called a double radio source. They will find one above the plane of a galaxy and below the plane of a galaxy. And those things are quasars. And for the longest time, scientists have said, no, quasars exist out on the edge of the universe, of what we can see, in other words. And galaxies are very close. And Halton Arp found over and over and over galaxies connected to quasars. Now, under the current model, that is absolutely impossible. But Mike, think about this. Galaxies are giving birth.
That's
How
just
beautiful is that?
awesome. That's
That is
seriously awesome.
beautiful.
It's yeah, it just it changes. It is a literal cosmic change in thinking about what space, the universe, the cosmos is.
Oh, it is.
Um,
It's just
it just it
magnificent.
changes everything. It
It
makes it
does.
alive. It makes it exciting. It makes it like a I don't know, like
And
the
beautiful. I
moon.
gotta add
The moon
beautiful
is
in
no
there.
longer just this. The moon is no
Rock.
longer just like this little rock in the star that helps with the tides. Like it's serving this massive purpose for Earth to have life. Like it's just incredible.
I know.
Um,
And all of a sudden you realize that we may not even know the full extent of it. And
right.
then it gets really exciting. And then you can start and here this is what I tell my kids when I teach science. It's like, guys, it's okay to have wild ideas about why a thing works. That's what science is.
Yeah.
Science is about the unknown and exploring the unknown. It's not about the known. So if you want to make up the idea that the moon is a conscious entity that is blessed, that it's our mother and it's smiling upon us and blessing us, great. Find an experiment that either just proves that or adds to the body of evidence. It doesn't matter how crazy your idea is. What
Oh,
matters is that you don't stop with
yep.
that idea, that you actually create experiments to say, okay, let's see if this actually has viability or not.
Well, and I'll tell you one of the craziest ideas that,
Go.
and it was, David Talbot talked about it. And it's, it's everywhere kind of in the ethos of the electric universe, but it's also like, it makes sense from a historical standpoint of why people had such a fascination with Saturn. And that is that the Earth was, used to be part of Saturn's influence
Oh,
and was kind of
this.
taken away. But I mean, we're talking about like
Yeah,
people will think you're woo woo when you start talking about this stuff, but when you start looking at the evidence, you start saying, wait, our water is exactly the same as that of Saturn's moons.
right,
Our like
right,
Venus and Mars were probably our brother and sister planet, and somehow these planets are just a little bit different than all the other planets in the solar system. And
right.
it just like opens up your mind to like, whoa,
It does.
like things make
And
sense.
they do. And there's whenever you hear those stories, we're going back to intuition again. I think it's really valuable to listen to all the different possibilities, and the ones that resonate with you, go with
Yeah.
that one. And when I say go with, I don't mean blindly accept it. I mean, start researching that, start, doing experiments, start doing anything that can add to the validity of that or not. I think
Right.
intuition is vital for scientific growth, which is kind of weird because you think intuition and science are two, completely separate things, chalk and cheese. They're not.
No,
I
no,
think they're essential.
they are, because you have to. It's like you have to have the spark. You have to have the idea before you do
Right.
the experiment.
Right.
The
And
science is, to me, science is just a tool to help you. Either. So when I teach piano, one of the things that is interesting is a lot of. Because a lot of piano teachers, they teach, just you've got to read the music, and so it discourages people who tend to learn music by ear, and I would call that a more intuitive learning. And
that's how I learned.
yeah, okay, yeah, and many people did, and a lot of piano teachers, and I won't say they'll just fully discourage us, they just don't know what to do with it, like they don't understand like how to deal with that kind of a student.
Wow.
And one of the things that I've discovered and I've tried to instill into my students is like, these are these are tools that work together. Like the music on the page should match the thing that you're hearing. And if something is discordant, if something isn't working, like it's either your ear that's wrong or it's the music, but it gives you the chance to check both. If you're reading something wrong, your ear's going to notice it. If you're
Right.
hearing something wrong, the music is going to tell you. And so it's the same thing with intuition and science. Like it's the science as a toolbox to help you either confirm or,
Oh, absolutely.
what your intuition is telling you.
Oh, that's a great metaphor. I that's how I played, because I played the piano. I learned to play the piano, and I experienced both of those scenarios where I'd learned the mechanics of like read the notes, know the notes,
Yeah.
but then also being able to pick stuff up just by hearing it.
Yeah.
And hearing when something went wrong, not knowing what notes are wrong, not knowing what stanza or measure it in, but hearing it and saying, oh, there's something wrong right there. So that's a
Yeah.
great metaphor.
And they're both like equally valuable. And if you're not practicing with both of those tools, then it's like it's
It's like
the
having a
muscle.
toolbox with just a screwdriver in it.
Yeah, the
And that's
muscle
it.
is dwindling, and you can't. And when you need it, you're not going to get it. And that's why you see a lot of like classically trained pianists who say, "I can't ad lib. I can't make stuff up. It has to be on the music, or I can't play it." I hear that all the time. And it's like, no, you can.
Oh,
Your just muscle has gone down. You just need to practice it. You can do it.
yeah.
But it's the same thing with, and I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of the people in the Electric Universe community are of that same ilk of like being willing to just like they're heterodoxous or whatever enough to like
Yeah.
they're against the grain enough to just say, I'm going to take this, in a crazy direction, and I'm willing to be wrong. Like that's just such a powerful thing to say. I'm just willing to be wrong on this, and let's see where it takes us.
Well, David Talbot, in one of his own presentations, admitted that he had to let go of some of his cherished ideas about the EU, about the mytho-historical record, when it was shown that, the facts just didn't support it. And when he said that, when he admitted that in public, I wanted to stand up and chat, clap and cheer and cry. I'm like, bravo! Yes,
Right.
this is what science is when you find facts that contradict your previously held beliefs that you hold like a baby. You're like, nope, that was wrong. Next. I mean, that's hard. That is hard to do.
It's hard. Well,
and he admitted it. He admitted doing it. I'm like,
yeah, no, that is bravo. That's that humility that we were talking about before. That's so necessary for any growth in any endeavor.
right.
I want to ask you about Wal and some of his predictions. And he made a lot of predictions. And one of the things again I love is he would put his cards out there. Like he would say, okay, there's this new telescope that's going up, and they're gonna find this, and this, and it's gonna blow science out of the water.
Yeah.
And then so talk a little bit about that. And I don't expect you to know all of them, but maybe a couple of ideas that where like he said something like, this is what they're gonna find. And I'm thinking maybe I think comets was a big one, but anyway, what are some of the things that he predicted that turned out, whoa, was right on when the evidence came in?
Right. So I got two of them, and one of them was the comet, and I don't remember the name of it. I don't think it was Hayabusa, but it was the comet where we took a copper projectile and just threw it down. Oh, excuse me.
That's all right.
We have fairies in the background giving us background music.
That's all right, man.
Go.
I'm a big fan of fairies. I have a friend who he used to do the Renaissance Festival here in Phoenix, and he would make mummified fairies. It was like the greatest. Yeah, it was the greatest thing. He would mummify these things and have little stories with them. It was awesome. It's so great.
That's great. Oh, fairies are gone. Thank you, ladies. Oh, some gentlemen. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so there was a comet that we smashed a copper projectile in, and the scientists were expecting it to be one type of explosion, and it was exactly the opposite. And one thing that Wall said was going to happen is that there will be a disruption right before the impactor hits, and that's exactly what happened. There was a very bright flash, and the actual telemetry was distorted because of the electromagnetic interference. And NASA was not expecting that. And just boom. So that was one of them. And there was a couple other little elements in there, like the size of the crater and whatnot that Wall had, right? And you can go back and read it. And what's fun about reading this is that he puts the date and the time and everything. It's not like some stupid TikTok
Yeah.
video where he says, "Oh, this is what I predict." He actually gives dates and times and everything. So
No,
you can look
he's
at-
got the receipts, man.
he's
He
got the
says this is
receipts.
yeah, he does it beforehand, and he's bold about it. He's like, this is and
Yeah,
I love it. He's like, this is gonna put science in crisis.
right. So the other one is the one that he probably just barely got to see before he passed, which I like to think that's a good thing, is that with James Webb, he said that when we look out at large nebula, that we will see, well, not even nebula, but as we look out in the universe, we will see twisted pairs of plasma everywhere. And all you do is just look up James Webb. You will see that that is exactly what's coming back. The
Wow.
electricity flows in twisted pairs. Electricians know this, which is why they make the Cat5 cables for your computer in twisted pairs. If you don't
Right.
know that, go look at a twisted pair. Go look at the Cat5 cable, cut it open, take off the insulation, the first layer of insulation. You will see twisted pairs. There will be a brown and white, red and white, orange, blue. They're twisted pairs because that is the most efficient way that electricity travels in the universe.
That
Twisted
is
pairs. He nailed
awesome. That is awesome. There was another one, and I'm sure he talked about it, where one of the probes went to, I think it was Saturn. In fact, I'm sure it was Saturn. Went above Saturn and saw
it. Counter rotating
the
rings.
counter rotate. Yes, that was just an amazing thing to see and go, whoa! Like to see that.
I know.
Um, that was just
And the
cool for me.
hexagon.
Yeah, the
And the
hexagon.
hexagon. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is happening because of gravity. This is happening because of windstorms.
I'm not opposed with it being done by gravity, but it's just that none of the gravity models that we have explain that.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, okay, guys, if the model doesn't explain it, please don't put a band-aid on the model. Just
Right.
change the model.
Right.
That's all you have
Yep.
to do. Just change it.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much we could talk about with Wal, like, and I would really encourage what is his website, so people want to read his writings and get into that. What was his website?
It's hollowscience.org.
Hollowscience.org.
HOLO.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, people could look up the Thunderbolts Project YouTube channel. But I want to talk about his legacy. Who are the figures today that you think? And I'm going to count you as one of them. So we're just going to say
Wow.
Benjamin Hyde is one of the guys that is putting out great ideas about the electric universe stuff. But who else do you see as really pushing the envelope and
Right.
I guess being the missionary for the electric universe?
Sure. So I'm just gonna leave the pillars who are already there, like Don Scott and David Talbot and
Yeah.
et al. So there's pillars that are already still there, but I'm going to talk about new and up and coming, and I would definitely have to say Gareth Samuel.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the amount of content that he has put out is just staggering. I haven't even gone through it all yet, but
he gets deep into the science. Like there's
he
stuff that
does.
I like I don't understand as I'm watching his stuff. I'm like, okay, I don't get it. So I got to look at something, a little bit more basic, but he does. He explains everything that somebody who's an electrical engineer that was a cosmologist could understand.
Right. He may not be the best guy for just starting out,
Right.
but boy, if you have a little bit of science under your belt, you can wade through. I still don't get a lot of his stuff because I've gotten into the habit of listening to it in the background, and that is a terrible way of listening to it.
Oh
Don't
yeah, because
listen to
he gets
his
his
stuff
he
in the
gets his
background.
charts out.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. He's not a podcast type presenter. You need to pay attention as if you're sitting in a class because his material is collegiate worthy. The amount of research and explanation is just staggering. He's amazing.
And his YouTube channel is See the Pattern. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Definitely highly recommend.
Absolutely.
Who else do you think will be in that? It would be in that group.
Oh boy.
I think he's the biggie.
He is absolutely the biggie. Um, there's a couple smaller ones of us that are, tinkering around with garage experiments. Electric Universe Eyes. That's David
Yeah.
Brown. Um, of course, Robert Hawthorne has been putting out stuff, and I work with him,
Okay.
building up some new theories. The twin comet theory is a very fascinating one that he and I have been working on this last year.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah.
that deals mostly with petroglyphs and their significance and meaning, and then going into mythohistory to look for explanations.
That's
It's
awesome.
amazing. I mean,
Oh, I love it.
oh yeah, the whole twin comet theory idea is something I'd never heard of before. He apparently got inspired with it, started doing research, and just unloaded, just got an avalanche of stuff. Apparently, all over the planet, along with the breakup of the polar configuration and all the stuff crazy in the skies, there were two comets that were apparently did uh, a fair amount of damage and spectacular stuff that were in the sky that were different than Mars and Venus adjusting themselves in the sky. That's what it
Wow.
looks like. That's what it. Now we might be wrong. We might be wrong. But there are
Right.
so many stories from so many cultures on every continent about two comets. How they're brothers. They're not identical. One's a little bigger, one's a little smaller. And what they did, and you're just like, oh my gosh, Robert, what did you stumble into?
See
And
that,
then we
by the
have,
way, that's a whole other aspect that David Talbot goes into, and others too, and that ties into this twin comet theory, is that how alive our solar system is, and
oh yeah,
within humans being here, like how much the sky was different.
right.
Um,
The idea of
and
uniformitarianism, which is the idea that everything that we see now is the same way it always was, we just have to extinguish that idea.
right.
It's a safe security blanket. It makes the equations easy, but it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's just
Um,
wrong.
Talk to me what you know, and we haven't talked about this, so you may not know a whole lot, but another fascinating project that's kind of been on the back burner the last few years, but I think may pay dividends at some point, is the Sapphire Project,
Yeah.
and what they're doing. What
Oh yeah.
maybe explain that a little bit, and maybe I don't know if you have an update. It's probably been a couple of years since I've heard an update, but what is the Sapphire Project, and what are they trying to do?
So the Sapphire Project, colloquially is called Star in a Jar, where they literally take a container and pump it full of plasma and electricity and ignite it, and the plasma does fun cool things. They call the Star in a Jar,
Right.
and they're trying to recreate some of the effects, the atmospheric effects of our sun in a jar.
Yeah.
And it can be done. They did it a couple different ways, but right now, if anyone is unfamiliar with the Sapphire Project, you really need to go look at their updates, get familiar with it.
It is fascinating.
It
It's insane what they did.
it's criminal that it's not on the front page of every scientific magazine. Mike, they had
Amen.
validated transmutation of elements.
Yeah.
Validated
Yeah.
by third
That
party.
was I remember when I
Like,
watched that, and
wow.
again, this is from a musician, like non-scientific background, but I could tell like something very significant was happening, and it was criminally underreported about what that crew did. And I don't know why.
I don't either. I don't know.
It's
I don't know why either. It was so hard. When Monty came out, there was Montgomery Childs is like the lead for the Sapphire Project, and he's the one that presents and then brings in a couple of the other. Dr. Michael Claridge is another one.
Yeah,
Wal was a
he's great.
science
Michael
advisor on
Claridge is
that.
awesome.
Oh, he is. He has one of my favorite videos. It's like See the Light or something. It's just an absolutely spectacular video for me
Yes.
personally. I love that video. But he when he came
Yes.
out, he Michael Carriage, or I'm sorry, not Monty Childs, was just so
Montgomery.
matter of fact. He's like, this is what we have. He wasn't dramatic like I'm dramatic. I have, my voice is going all over. I've got inflection, whatnot. He was just middle of the road. This is what we found. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, we need to put trumpets and fanfare behind what you just said, because you
Right.
just made an epic statement, and you've got the receipts to back it up. I'm like, oh my gosh, why is this not everywhere?
So talk
Sapphire.
about, because I saw the video, I kind of understand, just for our listeners, what was so significant about what they did.
Okay, so let me do one thing real quick. Sapphire, Safire, is how they spell it. So what was so significant about it is that they were able to replicate the surface of our sun inside a container and do it in a way to where they could monitor it and see different things. They would change the amount of electricity they would introduce into the chamber, and that would change, what the surface of this little sun looked like. And what they were able to do is mimic certain features that we see on our sun and in our sun's atmosphere inside the laboratory. That's incredible. Because if we send a satellite out to the sun, if it gets too close, it'll just burn up. We have stereo A and B out there that are, thank goodness, able to look at the sun, but they're way out there. We actually were able to measure and create the sun in the jar in a way that we could measure it. And here's one of the other things. You'll probably remember this. There's something called a Langmuir probe. If you don't know what it is, it doesn't matter. It's just a probe. In the video, it looks like a stick. And they're pushing the stick toward the center of the burning star, right? And this was tremendous. I don't know if you remember this, but they had three different. The Langmuir probe measures the temperature, and it also measures the voltage. I'm sorry, it measures voltage. I don't know if it measures temperature, but I know it measures voltage, right?
Yeah.
So before they did that experiment, they had three different plasma physicists run the equations separately, all by themselves, to verify that they could stick the Langmuir probe where they wanted to without it, getting destroyed or anything. All three of them said, yeah, it's fine. They stuck the Langmuir probe in. It vaporized it.
Wow.
They're like, what the crap? Monty was so freaked out about it. He was afraid to go to his boss, who was the funding arm of this, and say, we just destroyed a $3,000
we need another
probe.
one.
Yeah, and then he's like, get another one. Right. But when he saw that happen, and you can see the video of it, you can watch it evaporate. It's not a very big thing. It's not, it's not Hollywood style. It's just, you see the little probe, and then the next second you don't see it there. He said to an audience of his peers, we don't understand plasma physics. We're going to have to rewrite the equations on this. Holy crap! I was like, oh my God. And he's not blowing smoke. They literally thought that the Langmuir probe was going to be safe. But something happened that went outside their understanding, that evaporated the Langmuir probe.
So
that is awesome.
It is just awesome. And like, ladies and gentlemen, could you imagine your own little star in your backyard that's giving you all the power you ever needed for the rest of your life?
Right. Well, it's not that far away. If you want to go down that road, we're going to talk about LENR. Do you know what LENR is?
I don't.
That is the new safe word for cold fusion.
Okay.
LENR, it stands for low energy nuclear reaction. It is cold fusion. But cold fusion, as you know, has a very bad word association with it. So they started using LENR. LENR is already out there. There's already 3 companies selling it. It's out there. This thing that we read that LENR and cold fusion was bunk and debunked is a lie. Like, it's a lie. And Sapphire is going to be a part of Sapphire is going to be a part of that equation. So
Oh,
LENR has been developed separate from Sapphire. I'm not going to say Sapphire and LENR are the same thing. They've been developed separately. But LENR is already being marketed. It's out there. ECAT Systems is one of them. Just look up ECAT Systems. The letter E, C-A-T, or K-A-T. I don't remember which one it is. ECAT Systems.
Okay.
It's already out there.
You know,
and the Sapphire project is showing that the same kind of things that happened in the LENR systems can happen there.
And this goes back to like the whole idea of the electric universe, or one of the ideas of the electric universe, is this idea that there is a lack of energy in the universe or on our planet or available to us is just a, I mean, I'm going to say it, just a lack of curiosity and a lack of imagination.
Right.
Like the energy. If we saw the energy that was pouring on into our planet, and I don't mean just like sun rays, but the connective plasma beams that are connecting the Earth and the sun and the rest of the solar system, it's unfathomable. It makes Tulsa look like a child. Like it's unfathomable the amount of energy that we, if we could tap into it, have available to us.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're not far, as you said.
I don't think we are. So on my phone, I have my background screen is a red sprite. You know what red sprites are?
I've heard the name. I'm sure if you told me, I'd remember.
It's okay. That a red sprite is above cloud lightning.
Yes,
essentially.
Yes.
Okay. They look like jellyfish. They're very beautiful. They've been known about for a long time, but pilots would see them all the time, but they didn't want to talk about it because it was weird. Nobody knew what it was. Now they're fully accepted and they're being photographed and just done. People are making absolutely exquisite pictures of these red sprites. And there's a whole family of these they're just plasma displays.
Yeah.
But what you talked about, the amount of energy coming in to the planet, that is a manifestation of that.
Yep.
Because believe it or not, and this was really kind of funny, scientists didn't know where lightning came from.
Right.
And we actually don't. I mean, we say, well, yes, it's a charge differential built by the clouds. Well, yeah,
doesn't make sense.
It's not actually done by the clouds. What was found is that when a storm system had developed, scientists sent up balloons and measured the charge and found the charge. Duh, we know that's there. But here's what also happened. They sent up charges, or they sent up balloons and measuring devices before the storm got there, and the charge that they measured in the storm was already there.
Right.
Storms don't create the electric charges. They are a manifestation of the charge that's already there.
Yes, it's the plasma going into glow mode, right?
Yeah, it is. Yes.
And like people will get blown away if you start saying like, hey, what if lightning comes from the sun?
I know.
Like,
people start thinking of long bolts going from the sun to the earth. It's like, well,
no, not like that.
Close.
Right.
I mean, it's plasma in dark mode. Yes, it is.
Well, I mean, there and there's so many. Just because of time, we got to leave it there. But I'm telling you, the legacy that Wal Thornhill really spearheaded, and it really was. There's other people, but he was really the tip of the spear as far as getting the ideas of the electric universe out into the open.
Oh, I'm going to agree with that. Absolutely.
Very much just like slow clap, like love everything he does, and grateful that he did that.
Yeah, there are times when I just realize that he has passed on. I'm just like, no.
Well, because we're sitting here talking, laughing, like excited about the ideas that he brought, that he started. Like, it's not like he like came up with every single part of this theory, but because he put it out in the universe, like the rest of us can go, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this?
Right.
And it just gets so exciting.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the Electric Universe, is it is invigorating, and Wall himself has said that.
Yeah.
That it's exciting, and that's fun, because so many people just go dead-eyed when they start talking science. Or no, it's because it's been presented wrong. It's going down the wrong path. When
Right.
you find the right path, all of a sudden science becomes exciting.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times people have said, "Oh, I wish you were my science teacher." I'm like, "I wish I was your science teacher. We'd have fun."
Yeah.
Let's go. Have a seat. Here we go.
Let's do it. Oh man. Well, any parting thoughts again? Yeah. What more? Is there anything more you want to say about Wall and his legacy before we
I
sign
really
off?
miss him. I really miss him.
Yeah.
I if I could bring him back, I would.
Yeah.
I really miss him. He was fantastic. He is a pillar in my life. It's just, I have nothing but good, fond, happy memories of our conversations, of his stuff. Was he right in everything? No, but he never claimed that he was right.
Yeah.
His whole motivation was, let's go find out what's really going on, and test it and look for it to make sense.
Right.
And that's
Yep.
brilliant. I love that.
It's good
And I miss
stuff.
him. I really do.
Well, and we all do in our own way. I
Yep.
know it's more personal for you, but we all miss him. But like I said, I really truly believe, as they said, at the funeral, that his legacy, he will be in the future, he will be seen as much more important than he's seen today.
I absolutely. Oh, how can he not be? I mean, unless the universe absolutely dies and no one picks it up again, he will
Right.
absolutely go down the history books as a pillar in this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just as much as Jurgens, as Hannes Alfvén, as everybody.
Because the internet is forever.
Oh, let's hope so. Oh, let's
Right.
hope so.
Ben, thank you for coming on and sharing your stories and just talking about Wall and getting excited about the science of the electric universe again. I really appreciate it, man.
That was a lot of fun, Mike. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. This is And If Love Remains. You've been listening to Mike Levitt, Ben Hyde. Oh, where can people find your stuff if they want to know more about you and Spark Science?
I have a website, sparkscience.org.
Very good.
It's got links to my Facebook page, and I do a lot of lives on Facebook. So come on over.
Yes, and they're great. They're wonderful. Check them out, sparkscience.org. Ladies and gentlemen, this is And If Love Remains.
You are listening to And If Love Remains.
First of 23 installments requested by Dr. Levitt. We're trying to be in compliance here because we're taking him and that whole organization down.